It was a Wednesday. Ordinary, gray-skied, too cold for March. I was microwaving leftover pasta in the kitchen when it happened. The chime on my phone sounded, a high, quick ping I'd assigned to messages from her. I wiped my hands, grabbed the phone, and opened the message with that familiar flutter in my chest. She still made me feel that way sometimes. Claire. My wife. The preview showed a photo. A little blurry. Skin. Shadows. I frowned and tapped to expand. And then the world stopped turning. She was naked. Not fully, but enough. Her back arched, mouth parted. The lighting was soft, deliberate. Her hair loose, falling across her shoulder the way she knew drove me crazy. But this wasn't for me. Because below the photo, barely a breath of a second later, another message came in. Oops. 2 letters. 1 syllable. And just like that, 8 years of marriage collapsed in on themselves like a rotting beam under pressure. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The microwave beeped behind me, forgotten. All I could do was stare. Oops. There was nothing playful in it. No follow-up. No frantic explanation. Just that. She didn't mean to send it to me. That photo, that moment, wasn't meant for my eyes. And now she knew I had seen it. I set the phone down slowly, like it might detonate. My hands were trembling. I looked at the photo again, because some part of me needed to make it real. Needed to be sure I hadn't imagined it. But there it was. Every curve, every shadow. Her lips parted in a way I hadn't seen in months. Maybe longer. The air in the kitchen felt thick, like breathing through fabric. I could hear my own pulse. And then the phone rang. Her name on the screen. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I stared out the window, watching the wind tug at the bare branches of the oak tree in our backyard. Everything looked the same. Nothing felt the same. After a while, I sat down at the table and stared at the photo again. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Because it mattered. The angle of her neck. The background of the shot, definitely not our bedroom. A hotel? Someone else's apartment? I felt it in my bones before I knew it in my mind. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time, heat of the moment, made a terrible choice kind of betrayal. This was practiced. Comfortable. Familiar. My phone buzzed again. A new message. Please don't freak out. Can we talk? I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the reply button, then dropped. I stood, walked to the fridge, and opened it, just to do something, anything, that wasn't sitting still. But even the silence felt loud. She'd meant to send that photo to him. Whoever he was. Whoever made her smile like that. Whoever brought that flush to her skin. It wasn't me. Hadn't been me for a long time. And yet. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just cold. It settled into my chest like frost, slow and patient. I turned the phone off. I didn't want her excuses. Not yet. I needed truth. But not from her. And not in her words. I sat back down and pulled my laptop toward me. If there was one thing I knew about Claire, it was that she wasn't careful. She never cleared her browser history. She reused passwords. She synced everything. The photo wasn't a mistake. It was a revelation. But what came next, the confrontation, the man on the other side of that photo, the choices they'd made in my absence, would unravel in ways none of us saw coming. I hadn't lost her yet. But I was about to lose a version of myself I didn't even realize was still alive. She came home like nothing had happened. Still wearing her camel coat, hair pulled into a loose bun, keys jingling as she dropped them in the glass dish by the door. A bag of groceries looped on her arm. I watched from the kitchen table, laptop closed now, the same untouched bowl of pasta sitting in front of me, congealed and forgotten. She saw me and froze. Just for a second. A blink. Then, as if reading from some internal script, she smiled. "Hey," she said, her voice soft, a little too practiced. "You're home early." I didn't respond. Just watched her, like I was watching a stranger pretend to be my wife. She shifted the bag to her other arm, her eyes flicking to my phone on the table. The one she'd texted. Her gaze lingered on it, brief, subtle, but I caught it. "Ran into heavy traffic on 8th, she added, turning toward the kitchen counter. "Thought I'd pick up some things for dinner. Figured I'd make your mom's lemon chicken." She only made that when she felt guilty. "Claire," I said, and my voice came out quieter than I meant. "Not angry. Not yet. Just still. Hollow." She paused mid-step, her back to me, her posture too straight. I could see her shoulders tighten beneath the fabric of her coat. A beat passed. 2. Then she turned slowly, that same smile ghosting her lips. "Yes?" she asked, eyes wide and innocent like a child caught near a broken lamp. "I got a message," I said, voice steady, though something inside me was already beginning to splinter. Another pause. "Longer now." "What kind of message?" she asked carefully. My stare held hers. "A photo. Meant for someone else." She blinked. And I saw it, the flicker. That exact second when the mask slipped. Her mouth parted, a half-formed excuse on her tongue, but I kept going. "I saw everything. Claire. Don't lie." And just like that, her face changed. The performance ended. The guilt, the sweetness, gone. In its place, distance. Cold calculation. She set the grocery bag down with exaggerated care and leaned against the counter. "Fine," she said. "You weren't supposed to see that." There it was. No denial. No apology. Just admission. Simple. Casual. "Who is he?" I asked, even though I didn't really want the answer. "Not yet." She crossed her arms. "Does it matter?" My breath caught. I stared at her like I didn't know her, and maybe I didn't. "What do you mean, does it matter?" She scoffed. "You want a name. You want to play detective now. You want to dissect the whole thing like a coroner pulling apart a body already gone cold." She was angry. At me. "You sent me a photo by accident," I said, slower now. "You exposed your secret, and now you're mad." "I'm not mad that you found out," she said, her voice low. "I'm mad that you always wait until it's too late to notice what's happening right in front of you." My pulse surged. What is that supposed to mean? She stepped forward. "You think I woke up one day and said, I want to hurt the man I married?" "No. I waited. I waited for you to come back to me. I waited for you to ask why I cry in the shower, or why I stopped sleeping next to you, or why I always look over my shoulder now like something's chasing me. You had an affair, Claire. And you checked out, long before I ever did." The silence between us was no longer silent. It rang like a scream neither of us had voiced. She wiped at her cheek. Angry tears, not remorseful ones. And then, before I could speak again, the front door opened. And he walked in. Like he belonged. Taller than me. Younger, barely. Smirking like he owned the oxygen in the room. "Babe, your door was." He stopped mid-step when he saw me. I stood. He laughed. A low, smug sound that sent blood rushing to my ears. "Oh," he said, glancing at Claire. "You didn't tell me he'd be here." I don't know how long I stood there. Everything in me wanted to move, lunge, shout, throw a fist, throw him out, but I was frozen. Not by fear. By disbelief. The sheer audacity of it. He walked into my home, through my door, carrying the scent of my wife on his skin, and he laughed. Claire didn't look at me. Didn't look at him. She just stared at the floor, arms crossed, the silence between us cracking like ice under pressure. Are you kidding me? I finally asked. My voice was low, but it cut through the room like a blade. The guy, he couldn't have been older than 30, maybe 32, tilted his head and smirked. He had one of those faces that made you want to punch the smirk off before he even spoke. Nope, he said, stepping forward like we were about to settle this with a poker game and whiskey instead of pain. But I guess this is the part where you do the whole dramatic husband act. Threaten me? Ask how long. Maybe ask if it meant anything. I blinked. Slowly. You have no idea who you're dealing with. He chuckled again. That's where you're wrong. Claire's voice finally broke the tension. Both of you, stop. But we didn't. Not really. What's your name? I asked him. He raised an eyebrow. Why, so you can look me up later. Maybe warn the next guy. My jaw tightened. Claire stepped between us then, not touching either of us, but drawing an invisible line with her body. His name is Tyler, she said. And then, looking at me, and yes, it's been going on a while. The words landed like punches. Clean. Precise. Rehearsed. How long? I asked, my voice shaking in spite of myself. She hesitated. Claire. How long? She met my eyes. Since August. 7 months. 7 months of dinners where she said she was tired. 7 months of mornings where her smile never quite reached her eyes. 7 months of sleeping inches apart while her soul was 100 miles away. You brought him into our home? I asked, my voice raw now, teeth gritted. Only once, she said quickly. Too quickly. Jesus, I breathed, staggering back a step like her words had struck me physically. I looked at Tyler again. You knew she was married? He gave a careless shrug. She said it was over in every way but paperwork. Claire flinched. You son of a... I'd watch that, Tyler said, eyes narrowing, stepping forward. I met him halfway. We were inches apart. His breath smelled like mint and confidence. I smelled of betrayal and 3-day-old pain. You ever come near my kids, I whispered, I'll make you forget what your own name is. That wiped the smirk off his face. You think you're the only one hurting here? Claire's voice cracked through the tension. You think I wanted this to happen? Then why did it happen? Because you stopped seeing me, she shouted, fists clenched at her sides. Because I became furniture to you. Background noise. You loved me like a habit, not a person. I opened my mouth. Then closed it. Because I didn't have a defense for that. Tyler scoffed. You done? Or should I come back when the Lifetime movie wraps? That was it. I lunged. Fist colliding with jaw. A solid crack. Tyler stumbled back, crashed into the counter, knocking over the grocery bag. Lemons rolled across the floor like stunned witnesses. He spat blood onto the tile and looked up at me, eyes wide with disbelief. You hit me. I stepped forward. Get out. He looked to Claire. But she didn't say a word. And in that silence, he stood, wiped his mouth, and walked out without another word. The door slammed behind him. And then it was just us. The broken couple. The wreckage. The lemons on the floor. Claire didn't look at me. Her breathing was shallow, her shoulders rigid. Are you proud of yourself? She whispered. No, I said. But I meant it. She nodded. Once. Then sat down slowly at the kitchen table, her eyes glassy. "I didn't plan to fall in love with someone else," she said, almost too quietly. "And I didn't say what I wanted to say. Because I wasn't sure which was worse. That she had. Or that she still wasn't sure who she loved more." The house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Not the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. This was the kind that crept into your bones, whispered doubts in your ear, left your thoughts echoing off the walls with no place to land. Claire sat across from me at the kitchen table, hands curled around a glass of water she hadn't touched. Her eyes were swollen but dry now. Mine too. There were no more words between us, not the kind you say out loud, anyway. Just the invisible kind, thick in the air. Her betrayal. My failure. The ghost of Tyler's laugh still clinging to the walls like smoke. "You hit him," she finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "I should have hit him harder." "No," she said quietly, almost to herself. "You shouldn't have hit him at all." That stung in a way I didn't expect. I stared at her for a long time. At the way her fingers traced the rim of the glass. At the way she wouldn't look at me. "You're protecting him," I said. She shook her head slowly. "I'm protecting myself. From what I'll think of you if you keep becoming someone I don't recognize." I opened my mouth to argue, but I couldn't. Because the man who threw that punch wasn't who I was before. He was what she'd made of me. "Why him?" I asked. My voice sounded older than I remembered. "Why Tyler?" She rubbed at her eyes, smudging the makeup she hadn't bothered to remove. "Because he saw me." "I saw you," I said. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't the truth. Claire looked at me for the first time in what felt like hours. Not in anger. Not in guilt. Just sadness. That quiet, heavy kind that lives behind the eyes. "No," she said gently. "You saw the version of me you wanted to believe still existed. But I wasn't her anymore." And I realized in that moment, she didn't cheat because she stopped loving me. She cheated because she stopped recognizing herself when she was with me. It's a different kind of wound, that realization. Less about rage. More about grief. I leaned back in my chair, running a hand through my hair. "So what now?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I didn't think it would come to this." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Claire, you sent me the photo. You pressed send." Her mouth opened, then shut. She had no answer for that. "You weren't going to tell me, were you?" I said. "If you hadn't screwed up, this would have just kept going." "I don't know," she said again. "I wanted to end it. I think. But I didn't know how." "And then the photo. Was that supposed to be a goodbye?" "No," she said. "It was supposed to be a beginning." And there it was. The truth, laid bare. She wasn't just cheating. She was leaving. Or she had been trying to. I stood up, the chair scraping across the tile. The lemons from earlier still sat scattered on the floor, untouched. Like some cruel metaphor for a life that once had flavor, now just rolling around useless. "I need to get out of this house," I said, already walking toward the door. "Where will you go?" "I don't know," I said. "But somewhere I can breathe." She stood too, but didn't follow. Just stood there, watching me like she wanted to say something, but knew whatever it was, it wouldn't matter anymore. I grabbed my coat, keys, and opened the door. And then I turned back, just once, and said the one thing I hadn't let myself say until now. "I would have fought for you. Claire. I was fighting. You just never looked long enough to notice." The wind hit me like cold truth when I stepped outside. I didn't look back again. I didn't go far. Just drove. Past the old church where we were married. Past the school where she once surprised me with lunch, years ago, before kids and calendars and missed calls. Past the apartment we first shared, the one with the drafty windows and that kitchen sink that never drained right. It was late. The roads were quiet, the sky heavy with low clouds. I parked in front of a convenience store lit up like a hospital ward and just sat there, engine idling, fingers clenching the steering wheel. You don't grieve a betrayal all at once. It leaks into you. First as confusion. Then as fury. Then, as something else. I unlocked my phone, opened the photo again. That damn photo. Her skin bathed in warm light. That curve of her body. The look in her eyes, so alive, so intimate. I'd been with her for almost a decade, and yet I don't think she ever looked at me like that. Not like that. I noticed something this time. In the corner of the image, there was a reflection, just a sliver of glass, maybe a mirror or a window. And in it, a shape. Not his face. But his hand. Holding the phone. Taking the photo. He was the one who took it. And she let him. That made it worse. I dropped the phone on the passenger seat like it was burning my fingers. Something inside me twisted, hard. I leaned forward, elbows on the steering wheel, head in my hands. What was I supposed to do now? Go home? Sleep next to her again, knowing her body had already memorized another man's touch? Make breakfast for the kids like the ground hadn't shifted under our feet? I thought about Tyler. His smirk. His blood on my knuckles. I should have felt shame. But I didn't. I felt cheated out of a fight that should have been mine from the start. My phone buzzed. Claire. Come home. Please. I didn't answer. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I opened my contacts. Scrolled until I found a name I hadn't pressed in years. Adam. My brother. We hadn't spoken in nearly 4 years, not since the funeral, not since he said what he did about Claire. There's something about her, he'd said in that quiet, cautious voice of his. I just don't think she sees you, man. Not really. I had defended her, of course. Cut him off. Told him he didn't know what he was talking about. Maybe he'd seen something I refused to. I hit call. He answered on the second ring. Ben. His voice was surprised. Groggy. Everything okay? I didn't know how to answer that. So I didn't. Instead, I said the truth. The only one I had left. She's cheating on me. A pause. Then, where are you? In my car. East Side. Near that Sunoco. I'll come get you. You don't have to. I'm coming. He hung up. Just like that. And for the first time that night, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. He came 15 minutes later, headlights cutting through the dark. He didn't ask questions, didn't push. Just got out of the car and opened the passenger door like it was a lifeline. I slid in. Said nothing. Neither did he. Sometimes silence isn't empty. It's full of knowing. When we got to his place, a little townhouse on the edge of town, he tossed me a blanket and said, "You take the couch. I'm not sleeping much these days anyway." As I settled in, he sat across from me, beer in hand. "You want to talk about it?" I shook my head. But he waited anyway. And eventually, the words came. She sent me a photo. Meant for him. That's how I found out. He nodded, eyes dark. And then, he asked. I stared at the ceiling. Then he walked into my kitchen like he lived there. I didn't need to say more. Adam leaned back, took a long sip, and said, "You know what I remember most about her?" I looked at him. That first dinner. The way she looked right through you when she talked. Like you were a good man. Not a real one. That hurt. But it also felt familiar. I closed my eyes. And whispered, I think I've been disappearing for years. He didn't answer. But he didn't need to. I didn't sleep. The couch was soft enough, the blanket warm, but my mind wouldn't let me rest. It kept running in circles, chasing memories like shadows. Our wedding day. The way she used to hum in the kitchen. How she'd fall asleep with her head on my chest during stormy nights. And then that photo again. It was burned behind my eyelids. When the first hint of light broke through Adam's blinds, I was already dressed. He walked into the room with 2 mugs of coffee. No questions. No judgment. Just a quiet handoff. I took mine and stared into the steam like it might show me the future. You're not going back there, are you? He asked gently. I shook my head. Not yet. She's not going to give him up, you know. I know. That was the part that hollowed me out the most. Not the affair. Not the lies. But the look in her eyes when I confronted her. The absence of regret. The presence of something else, something worse. Defiance. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted permission. She didn't cry, I said after a while. Adam raised an eyebrow. Not once. Not when I found out. Not when I walked out the door. Not even when he bled in our kitchen. Adam exhaled through his nose. That's because she's already gone. I set the mug down on the table. No. If she was gone, she wouldn't have texted me. She texted you, he said, because she doesn't want to be the villain. Not because she wants to come back. That landed harder than I expected. Because it was true. Claire wanted both things, to be free of me and absolved by me. She wanted the clean break, the graceful exit, the story she could tell later without guilt. But I wasn't going to give her that. And I wasn't going to let Tyler get away with it either. I pulled out my phone, scrolled until I found the thread. Her text. Her photo. Her mistake. I tapped on the message. Held it. Hit forward. And sent it to Tyler. With one line. This is what ends her. I watched the status, delivered. Read. No reply. Good. He needed to feel that weight now. I wasn't going to fight for Claire anymore, but I was going to make sure he understood what it costs to walk into another man's home like a king. Are you sure you want to get pulled into more of this? Adam asked. I'm not starting a war, I said. I'm just setting the record straight. I stood, grabbed my coat. Where are you going? Home. Thought you said. Not to stay, I said. To finish. The house was still. Too still. Her car was gone. Good. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want another argument. I just wanted the pieces of myself she hadn't broken. I went to the closet, grabbed my things. The watch I'd stopped wearing. The photo of our daughter and me she used to keep on the nightstand, now tucked away in a drawer. My journal. My ring. I took it off. Slowly. It left a pale band around my finger. A scar without pain. I set it on her pillow. Not as a gesture. As a warning. This is what it looks like when the man you chose walks away. I was halfway down the stairs when I heard the front door open. She was back. Her eyes met mine at the bottom of the stairs. She looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept, but her posture, as always, was still proud. You came, she said. No, I replied. I left. I brushed past her, but she caught my sleeve. Ben. Don't, I said, voice low. Her hand dropped. I didn't expect it to feel like this, she whispered. Hollow. Cold. Then maybe you shouldn't have warmed yourself in someone else's bed. That one hit. She swallowed hard. I was lonely. I turned, finally meeting her eyes. So was I. The difference is, I stayed. And then I walked out. This time, for good. Spring came late that year. The kind that creeps instead of bursts, thawing one regret at a time. I moved into a small apartment above an old bookstore on the edge of town. The walls smelled like paper and dust, and I liked it. The quiet. The space. The way the light hit the windows in the morning and didn't remind me of her. I didn't tell many people what happened. Not because I was ashamed, but because explaining betrayal feels like bleeding in public. Everyone watches, but no one knows what to do. Claire texted once more. Just one line. Do you hate me? I stared at it for a long time. There was a time I would have begged her not to ask questions like that. Would have told her no, of course not, I just want to understand. But not now. Now, I was done understanding her. I didn't respond. Because no, I didn't hate her. But I no longer loved her either. And that kind of indifference. That's what finally broke the spell. She called the next week. I let it ring. She sent a voicemail, her voice cracked and uneven. Tyler's gone. He said I was too much drama. I guess he got what he wanted. And I'm sorry, Ben. I really am. But I think I was chasing something that was never real. I deleted it without listening to the end. She wasn't mine to carry anymore. The kids came to visit that weekend. Our daughter ran through the halls like she'd never seen stairs before. Our son sat on the floor and asked if he could build his Legos in the corner where my reading chair was. Can I ask you something, Dad? He said after a while, voice soft. Of course. Are you ever gonna live with Mom again? I paused, set down my book. No, I said. Okay. Just like that. He didn't cry. He didn't push. He just nodded. Like he already knew. Like he felt the fracture long before it broke. Sometimes, kids understand what adults spend years denying. Will we still have pancakes on Sundays? I smiled. Every Sunday you're with me. He smiled back. A small thing. But real. A few weeks later, I ran into Tyler. He was at a bar, leaned against the wall, trying to charm a waitress half his age. When he saw me, his face stiffened. He didn't smirk this time. Didn't laugh. He looked afraid. Good. I didn't walk over. I didn't say a word. I just looked him in the eye long enough for him to feel it. The cost of arrogance. The memory of a fist and the weight behind it. Then I turned and left. Because revenge wasn't mine anymore. Peace was. I started running in the mornings. 5 miles before sunrise. Something about the rhythm, the way your lungs burn, the way your body moves forward even when it wants to stop, it reminded me of surviving. Of becoming. I wasn't the same man Claire betrayed. I was someone else now. Someone stronger. Quieter. But not broken. I started dating again. Slowly. Cautiously. I met someone who liked bookstores and red wine and didn't flinch when I told her the truth. She didn't try to fix me. She just saw me. And I realized that was all I ever really wanted. To be seen. To be chosen. Fully. And this time, not by someone who was still undecided when the lights went out. The moral? It's simple. You survive. Even when the photo hits your phone like a bullet. Even when the man stands in your kitchen like he owns your life. Even when the woman you gave your soul to says she's empty and makes it your fault. You survive. And one day, you wake up and realize she didn't break you. She freed you. Because love, real love, never comes wrapped in secrecy. It comes with open hands. And eyes that never look past you.